What up? Welcome back. Episode 8, 2025-2026 season recap. Our last one went a little long, pretty active offseason. We'll try to tighten it up here for you on episode 8. We're starting with the draft lottery as always, but first our prospects. This is a big top 3. Brighton Reed is this elite, considered to be franchise-saving point guard out of Kentucky. He's expected to go number 1. Everyone considers him a generational point guard talent, and in recent seasons, point guards have really started to enter the NBA, and in seasons to come, where the guard position just becomes exceptionally stacked. The second best guy is Javon Rule. It's kind of considered 1A, 1B, but there's a very clear delineation that Javon Rule is not number 1. It's Brighton Reed, but you get a nice consolation prize if you end up at number 2 for Javon Rule. Next big guard, Louis Morgan. He's coming out. He's expected to go top 5. Really good shooter. Overall, good game. He's not a point guard, more of a 2-3 type of guard, wing type of player, but exceptionally talented. And then a potential dark horse is Savion White. Likely expected to go top 5. Elite defender. He played with Brighton Reed at Kentucky. Elite two-way wing. He's a 3-and-D. You probably don't want him at the 3. He's a little undersized, but at 6'7", he would dominate as a 2-guard in the right system. So let's head to the lottery. The Nets are coming in with the number 1 overall odds. The Wizards, the Thunder, they have one more swap with Houston that they get to make. Indiana Pacers are at number 4, and the Kings coming in at number 5. The way it plays out, not a lot of changes overall, but the Pacers go from 4 to number 1. The Blazers, they end up at number 6, or from 6 to 2. The Thunder via Houston. So again, those picks from Houston in the CP3 trade continues to be disastrous. The Nets, they fall to 4, and the Wizards end up at number 5. Overall, not a bad way to scope this out. So the expectation coming into the draft itself is that the Pacers are probably going to take Brighton Reed. Javon Rule will go to Portland, and then the Thunder can get their pick of Louis Morgan or Savion White, and it all expectations are that's headed to Savion White, and the Nets going to get whoever's left on the board. Before we even get to that, a couple of pre-draft trades, nothing exceptional here, but you see that number 8 pick, that's going to be moved by the Magic. They send that to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Wendell Carter Jr. At 28th, the Jazz are going to acquire Colin Sexton in exchange for Theo Maledon and the 28th pick from Cleveland, and the Celtics are going to move the 20th overall pick for Spencer Dinwiddie. Not that that's reflected obviously in the draft there, but that is some pre-draft trades that do go down. That's all for kind of some depth for Boston. Sexton with the Jazz, they're trying to retool, make a big 3 with Sexton, Mitchell, and Embiid. All right, let's move to the draft itself. No surprise at the top. It's Brighton Reed. He goes to Brooklyn. The big surprise is Savion White goes number 2 to Portland. They spur the California native Javon Rule, and they instead take Savion White with the 2nd overall pick. That ends up being Javon Rule going 3rd to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've got now Cade Cunningham, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Rule on that roster. Louis Morgan, meanwhile, he goes 4th to the Brooklyn Nets. And that's kind of how it all plays out. At number 6 is Spiro Yanu. He goes to Sacramento. Some other notable picks, Cameron Sullivan to Cleveland. Ezekiel Morrow is going to evolve into a phenomenal all-NBA caliber forward at number 9 to Toronto. And then the big surprise, Kareem Robinson, all the way down at 17. He blossoms into an all-NBA point guard to Chicago. So one of the biggest fallers, but Chicago a huge beneficiary of that one. Let's move on to the offseason. Giannis, 1 season after joining the Denver Nuggets via trade, says he wants out, and he heads to Dallas, where he's going to pair with Luka and Harden, an elite big 3 now in Texas. Sign and trade sends Kristaps Porzingis to Denver. Other big names from the summer of 24, they all re-sign, right? Ben Simmons stays in Golden State. DeAndre Ayton, stays with Oklahoma City, and Fox stays with the Pelicans. Embiid, he's going to return to Utah as well, and of course Harden is staying in Dallas. Meanwhile, a big trade. The Golden State Warriors, who trying to move up, they end up acquiring the number 3 overall pick from the Thunder. They send Ibrahim Mobley, who was the number 2 pick in 2022, over to the Thunder. The Thunder are trying to add some forwards. They're trying to add some wings, and in a guard-heavy class where they end up with a guy like Javon Rule, who's most definitely a point guard, they instead say, hey, look, we need to add some forwards, some two-way, 3-and-D wings, and Ibrahim Mobley fits that deal. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant, late in his career, says, I'm coming back to Oklahoma City. He returns, and then Bradley Beal, one season after being dealt to Milwaukee, returns to the Bucks. All right, head to the regular season where the Magic raced out to a 26-3 start to the season. They're finally starting to make some headway there as the Clips kind of struggled again. So they end up trading Kawhi Leonard to Boston for 2 firsts in 26 and 28. Those end up being some decent picks in the long run. Siakam gets dealt to Atlanta. The Raptors get the Hawks 2026 first round pick. And then Anthony Edwards, he has a dislocated patella. And that ends up really hurting his season and his career. It'll be kind of a string of knee injuries to the athletic wing and a tough loss there for the Hornets. Meanwhile, Orlando, like we said, they started 26-3. They end up with 65 wins. Miami, 61 wins during the regular season, and the Warriors with 62. Those are your top 3 teams. Dallas, meanwhile, they just can't put it together. They get 44 wins. They end up as the 8th seed in the Western Conference, despite having Giannis, despite having Luka, and despite having Harden, and all of that's going to set them up for a first-round matchup with a very familiar foe, the Golden State Warriors. All right, MVP, a very, very contentious one, but Jalen Green ends up as the most valuable player. A lot of people are out there saying he shouldn't have been, that it probably should have been somebody else, maybe Zion or someone else from one of these better teams. Donovan Mitchell had a serious case for that one, but it ends up being Jalen Green getting that one. Luka Doncic also had a case for the MVP, but just 44 wins kind of hurts his case. Another Defensive Player of the Year award for Giannis. Joshua Christopher, his career kind of looked like it was going to be on stilts, but he ends up kind of rebounding, gets most improved for the Hornets. The Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga gets 6th Man of the Year, and then Rookie of the Year, surprise one, is Louis Morgan. A lot of people thought it'd be Brighton Reed, but Morgan has a phenomenal season in Brooklyn, and he ends up as the Rookie of the Year. Your All-NBA teams, Jalen Green, that's kind of the big first surprising one in terms of new names to the list. He gets first-team All-NBA, but other than that, again, we're seeing a lot of familiar names here by the 25-26 season, though. In the seasons to come, that'll start to change a little bit. Let's move to the playoffs. As Dallas, they had some late season struggles. They end up as the 8th seed where they fall to the Golden State Warriors in 5 games. That's now 5 first-round exits for Dallas with Luka. Now 2 straight seasons with Luka and Harden, and the first year with Luka, Harden, and Giannis. A star-studded Oklahoma City team gets beat by Sasha Kasparov. Kasparov is one of the guys that is a huge what-if in this universe. Had he been healthy, there are plenty of people that think he's a multiple-time All-NBA guy, multiple-time All-Defense, and the Spurs are getting further than what they have been. But he just has not been able to stay healthy, and they end up going down. They take down Oklahoma City before eventually falling to the Warriors. New Orleans, they look dominant, and they just roll through their side of the bracket. They sweep the Jazz, take down the Lakers, who finally get back into the playoffs in 4 games, and they beat the Warriors in 6, a really big one. That matches them up with the New York Knicks. It's Trae Young making his first run. They end up taking down the MVP, Jalen Green, potential guy down the line, All-NBA caliber point guard, Trae Hunter. The Magic are kind of early on in their resurrection process, and they end up there. They fall in the second round. Trae Young then leads the upset of Detroit in the next round, so they take down a couple of the higher-ranked teams. LaMelo, Desmond Cooper, Evan Mobley just can't get it done for Detroit. Let's head to the NBA Finals, where there was really no doubt. The Pelicans were just a better team, and the Knicks had no answer for Zion or De'Aaron Fox. So we're seeing the first summer of 24 trade result in an NBA championship for New Orleans. De'Aaron Fox has some big games. He ends up averaging more than 25, almost 26 points per game. Zion, absolutely dominant, 34 and 14. Brandon Ingram actually missed this entire series and the NBA Finals with a leg injury, much of the playoffs with a leg injury. It didn't matter. Zion and De'Aaron Fox were just dominant. 4 double-doubles for Fox in this one. Jalen Suggs had some good nights. Trae Young was okay, but really not great. He scored 14 points in 3 of these games, despite averaging 21.8 on the series. Their win was thanks to Jalen Johnson. Jalen Suggs had 30-plus in games 1 and 2. R.J. Barrett had a couple 32-point games. Trae Young, this is kind of the narrative that starts to surround him, whether in-universe or outside of it. Can he win games? In this case, he just can't win big games. And when your team's built around him, that's where the Knicks have their struggles. So your NBA champion, Zion Williamson, his first NBA title, his first Finals MVP, and the Pelicans or champs in 2026.